Welcome to Quora Anonymous. If this is your first time and you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you would like to read along, turn on closed captioning with the 3 dots in the upper right corner. Now, let's begin. Is Onision a psychopath? Does he have any traits associated with psychopathy? Yes. Onision is absolutely grandiose, superficially charming, manipulative and lacks empathy for others. Thus it could be said that Onision has some of the interpersonal and affective traits of psychopathy. These traits are grouped under Factor 1 on the Hare Psychopathy Checklist, PCLR, which is sometimes referred to as primary psychopathy. Again, he does appear to have some of these but not all. Is he categorically a psychopath? No. Though he has a few of the key personality traits commonly seen in psychopaths, he has practically none of the criminal/antisocial behaviors seen in psychopathy, at least from what we can infer. The overall picture of a categorical psychopath is generally indicative of someone with a severe antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, usually accompanied by narcissistic features. What disorders might Onision have? Based on what is known about Onision, I suspect he meets most of the criteria outlined in the DSM for histrionic personality disorder, HPD. The symptoms of HPD consist of excessive, and usually inappropriate, attention-seeking, theatricality, sexually seductive behavior and shallow, but exaggerated emotional displays. Aside from being a pathological attention seeker, Onision is also an asshole. His arrogance, grandiosity, lack of empathy, exploitativeness and his need for admiration all point to him having comorbid narcissistic personality disorder, NPD. I should clarify I'm no expert, I just like researching psychology in my free time, to read studies and interesting articles. But the reason I have confidence in this is because with each criteria I've seen I have been able to find numerous examples of each, by looking at interviews with his victims, an interview with his former classmate, his posts and Twitter activity, which is strongly narcissistic and sexual. Finally, one of his victims, I believe it was Shiloh, said in an interview that he himself told her in confidence, "I don't know if I love anyone." I believe he meets perfectly the definition of a secondary distempered psychopath. A secondary psychopath is strongly driven by a desire to escape or avoid pain, but are unable to resist temptation. As their anxiety increases towards some forbidden object, so does their attraction to it. They live their lives by the lure of temptation. He actively seeks girls on the cusp of the age of consent, and probably did something sexual with someone as young as 15. There is massive risk in this sort of behavior, and he knew this considering he took a variety of measures to prevent himself from breaking the law, looking up the age of consent in various states, and choosing to meet in the state with the lowest possible. Distempered referring to how he will fly into a rage or frenzy more easily and more often than other subtypes. Their frenzy will resemble an epileptic fit. They are also usually men with incredibly strong sex drives, capable of astonishing feats of sexual energy, and seemingly obsessed by sexual urges during a large part of their waking lives. He literally had his girlfriend sleep right next to his computer setup, so he could have sex with her conveniently. In an interview I believe she said he had sex with her 8 times a day, and masturbated in between. And look at these videos. He thinks about something that makes him mad and flies into a rage, contracting his body muscles in a variety of weird way, usually while screaming or crying. Finally, there are just too many instances to count of him acting like a psychopath, or acting as if he cares for no one but himself and his desires. There is a video of him throwing candy corn at his then girlfriend, and saying this video will never be posted, so no one will know how much I abuse you. There is just so much that lines up with this diagnosis, I can't imagine it not being what he is afflicted by. All the names I've mentioned have done interviews with Chris Hansen identifying themselves, and sharing what happened to them with hundreds of thousands of people. Never into this guy, but I've watched his videos over the years, just to get an idea of who he is out of curiosity considering he has a big level of fame on the YouTube community. He definitely has NPD. He has even said in his videos that the reason he publicly shames his exes is because he was selfish and cared more about himself more than others. Definitely has BPD as well. He doesn't know how to react to things in a healthy or mature way and has self-destructive / manipulative tendencies. Goes on his page and shames another yachter before battling anorexia and tells her to end her channel because it's harmful to others. Yet if he had an ounce of self-awareness, he would realize that he has severe mental disorders that are negatively impacting his young audience and take down his channel in order to protect others from his own illness. I feel bad for this girl because yes, she clearly has a disorder. But you are only making it worse by publicizing it. And once again, if it was really a huge problem, then take it up with YouTube headquarters if you care so much, like you claim to. He seems to revert to childhood in times of stress as a coping mechanism because he doesn't know how to handle his emotions like a mature adult man without thinking of the consequences of his actions. You can see many videos where he regresses back into childhood. I feel bad for him because I'm pretty sure I remember hearing he had a really messed up childhood, so there's a good chance he was a victim of abuse in an unstable environment as a young child, which later led to his inability to cope with life and interact with society in a healthy manner. The people he associates with are probably no better either, and the good ones were intelligent enough to leave the situation. He seems to use the people in his life to promote himself and his image, giving little consideration to their values or what is important to them because he thinks his way of life and being is completely right, and that anyone who is different or has a contrary opinion is labeled as being bad or against him. I find it alarming that his audience is so young, as he is an adult man. You'd think he'd gear you content towards people of your own age group, but because he is internally a teenage boy, it makes sense his audience is also a bunch of teenagers. I genuinely wonder what is going to happen to this guy once he reaches his 50s and is like, okay, this is getting creepy, I need to make life changes. A year later, my prediction was right. I wished he would have addressed the issues he had with the anorexic girl in a way that was compassionate towards her. Point 2. If young girls are looking up to this woman, parents should have better parental control over what their children do on the internet as responsibility as a parent. That is a parenting problem. Point after 18. You are an adult. Reviewing over a year later, my opinion has hardly changed, if anything has solidified with recent child abuse allegations. He has been a mentally ill person his whole career and does a wonderful job at twisting situations to take focus off of himself. He's an adult man and should be tried as an adult man if held guilty. I don't care what his excuses to ill behavior are, this man needed professional mental help from the beginning of his career, and the people of the world who became his fans only enabled his illness to continue throughout the years. Not shocking what truths his exes have come out with, and I'm happy they found the inner strength to leave such a toxic human. He is an abuser and the signs were there all along. An abuser, perhaps due to the fact that he himself was abused, does not justify it, but sheds light on a possible and or probable motive. He is mentally ill. I have known this. The public has known this. My suspicions that I had raised earlier about him having a young audience were completely accurate, and I'm not in the slightest taken aback at child abuse allegations, which are probably true. The signs were there a year ago. It was only a matter of time before the truth surrounding this man came to light. Onision is someone that seems to just say and do what is necessary to gain followers and continue a revenue stream. I haven't seen anything about him that to me says that the person that he is on YouTube is anything like who he is in life. In fact, I'm guessing that there is much more of a presentation of a character with him. This is why it is impossible to decide the mental functioning of a celebrity. For the record, I'm not a fan of Onision. I personally don't enjoy his views, his videos, or the things that he does. However, this doesn't mean that I can see who he is as a person. He is likely very different at home with his family. YouTube is a revenue stream for him. He is going to do what he has to do to support his family. Does this mean he doesn't have something else going on? No. It means that no one can make that judgment call based on videos he does for YouTube. It's not a sound way to evaluate someone. I would guess that Onision has narcissistic PD with some borderline PD features, though it can't be said with certainty which one is the dominant disorder. Comorbidity between BPD and NPD is high, so this is not unheard of. His narcissistic abuse of young women and girls is especially nefarious. He has no clear sense of identity and changes personas all of the time. He idealizes and then devalues/discards those who are close to him. The latter phase is nearly always accompanied by malicious smear campaigns aimed at humiliating and punishing them. He is exploitative of others to achieve personal gain, including those closest to him. He once filmed his ex-fiancée having a seizure to provide content for his channel. He did not seek medical attention on her behalf. He gratuitously bullies and belittles others, including other YouTubers such as Eugenia Cooney. He then gaslights the target by attempting to frame his belittling as being out of genuine concern, with the #HELPEUGENIACONEY reference in one of his videos. He intentionally tries to provoke negative emotional reactions from others through belittling, name-calling and bullying, and attempts and displays a haughty and arrogant demeanor. He overreacts/is hypersensitive to criticism and responds with demeaning comments, smears, more belittling and over-the-top vitriol too. He does not respect the rights or boundaries of others and feels entitled to get what he wants. He capitalizes on the private lives of his romantic partners as fodder for his videos, which ties in with the previous point about exploiting others for gain. One girl who dated him for 3 weeks described refusing to have sex with him as fighting an uphill battle, to which she eventually gave up and just went with it. 3. This is technically rape. Beforehand I should say, I'm not an expert by any means. I just like researching psychology and reading papers about it. But I have watched tons of both his videos and the ones interviewing his victims and classmate. What I have seen has given me ample reason to suspect a particular diagnosis. He meets perfectly the definition of a secondary distempered psychopath. A secondary psychopath is strongly driven by a desire to escape or avoid pain, but are unable to resist temptation. As their anxiety increases towards some forbidden object, so does their attraction to it. They live their lives by the lure of temptation. He actively seeks girls on the cusp of the age of consent, and probably did something sexual with someone as young as 15. There is massive risk in this sort of behavior, and he knew this, considering he took a variety of measures to prevent himself from breaking the law, looking up the age of consent in various states, and choosing to meet in the state with the lowest possible. Distempered referring to how he will fly into a rage or frenzy more easily and more often than other subtypes. Their frenzy will resemble an epileptic fit. They are also usually men with incredibly strong sex drives, capable of astonishing feats of sexual energy, and seemingly obsessed by sexual urges during a large part of their waking lives. He literally had his girlfriend sleep right next to his computer setup, so he could have sex with her conveniently. In an interview I believe she said he had sex with her 8 times a day, while masturbating in between. And look at these videos. He thinks about something that makes him mad and flies into a rage, contracting his body muscles in a variety of weird ways, usually while screaming or crying. Finally, there are just too many instances to count of him acting like a psychopath, or acting as if he cares for no one but himself and his desires. There is a video of him throwing candy corn at his then girlfriend, and saying this video will never be posted, so no one will know how much I abuse you. There is just so much that lines up with this diagnosis. I can't imagine it not being what he is afflicted by. I'm thinking a high-functioning narcissist. But I would need to know his childhood to get a full concrete opinion, and that's probably the only thing he's legitimately hiding from everyone, like, compared to some of the shit he reveals, and shitty fakes. Every little thing you do reveals something about yourself. Even if you're a pathological liar or bully, you're showing your full face. All I know for a fact is that Greg has daddy issues, because his dad walked out on him and his mom. He isn't that big a fan of his mom, and is likely taking that out on his wife. His kids, both boys, will likely need therapy in the future. If you made it this far, you owe it to yourself to subscribe.